Hi there, welcome back to ET. Now you're watching Commodity Central with me, Kanishka Sarkar. And to get this started, let's put the spotlight on Brent and gold, how these commodities are shaping up. Well, first up, let's talk about the oil market. Now, intraday, Brent has seen an up move of about 0.2%, currently trading about that $67.8 a barrel level. Now remember, last week it did end higher, nearly 3% higher is what the move we saw, is the move that we saw last week. Now some of the factors that are at play, given the up move, 0.2% up move that we are seeing, risk assets with most commodities have extended gains, and that's the reason why gold is also gaining as we speak. Apart from that, the Fed chair, as we were talking about earlier in the headlines, has signaled interest rate cuts in September coming. That's the next month. Early September is when we could see the rate cuts happening in the US, and that's also why Brent is currently trading higher. Apart from that, traders are tracking tensions over supplies, and that's the reason why oil continues to be in focus. Apart from that, let's also put the spotlight on gold, which is seeing a similar downtick actually. That's 0.2% downtick coming in for gold, trading at the $3,365 an ounce level. Now remember, it did end 1% higher last week, but is currently trading slightly lower. Some of the key triggers, as we have been pointing out, the Fed chair has hinted at reduction in September, and it's a policy-sensitive commodity, and that's the reason it is trading currently lower. Apart from that, so these are the two key commodities that we are focusing on, that is oil and gold. But apart from that, let's also put the spotlight on some of the other commodities that we have in focus today. There is industrial metals is what we are focusing on. In fact, base metals, they have seen a rise when it comes to the move that we are seeing today. They are buzzing, as I said, commodities are in the focus after Fed Chair Jerome Powell has signaled at Jackson Hole that a rate cut could be coming as early as next month, that is early September. In fact, the street is also betting on a 25 bip September rate cut, and with the dollar softening and demand for metals in other currencies is getting a lift. That's the reason why base metals are in focus today. In fact, if we take a look at the moves in Asia, copper, tin, iron ore and steel futures, they all edged higher. On the London Metal Exchange, copper gained about 0.7% to that $9,796 per $96 level. Aluminum, on the other hand, that has also seen a 1.5% uptick at that $2,624 level. On the other hand, we have zinc, which jumped nearly 2% to that $2,818 level. And tin, that's the last commodity that we are tracking in terms of base metal, that has also seen a rise of more than 1% at the $33,809 level. So that's the kind of up move that we are tracking when it comes to industrial metals on the back of Fed Chair Jerome Powell's comments, of course. But apart from that, let's shift focus and keep it with precious metals then. And today, let's talk about controversy surrounding lab-grown diamonds versus natural diamonds. And a Natural Diamond Council, NDC, has published a report, a Laboratory-Grown Diamonds Facts Report. And the Natural Diamond Council is alleging that over 70% of laboratory-grown diamonds are made in coal-reliant grades in China and India, often using mined materials and large volumes of water, sometimes in water-stretched regions as well. Now, to discuss this further in greater detail, we now have David Kellie, Global CEO, Natural Diamond Council, joining us. Hi, David. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So I wanted your first thoughts on this. Your report essentially questions the environment impact of LGDs. Can you elaborate and explain to our viewers how exactly is that happening?
Yeah, so we think it's very important that consumers have all of the information at hand when they make decisions and choices. And there has been a myth perpetuating in the diamond world for a period of time that lab-grown diamonds are environmentally friendly. And so we very much felt it was important to come out with this report in order to give consumers the facts and explain the facts behind environmental claims. And that is that most lab-grown diamonds are produced using high levels of energy. It takes huge pressure, huge temperatures to create diamonds artificially. And in doing so, that uses huge amounts of power. And by far, the vast majority of that power is taken from the grids. which uses carbon energies. And so that's very different from the myth that it's a green alternative to natural diamonds, which frankly it isn't.
That's right. David, now, let's talk further about your report. It also challenges the claims of carbon neutrality for lab-grown diamonds. So if you could elaborate a little bit on that, what does it really mean, and what is it that our viewers must be looking at when it comes to lab-grown diamonds?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm not aware of any lab-grown diamond producer that produces an audited environmental report. So any claims made by the industry are purely claims. They are unsubstantiated. They don't create the reports that are audited to support any of those claims. And so we have to be cautious that claims made are not in fact true or are only partly true. So that's where, unlike the natural diamond industry and all the mining industry are generally large public companies that have to produce audited environmental reports to substantiate their claims. And that's the fundamental difference in the two industries. One is large scale, one is public companies with audited environmental reports. The other is much more about making claims, but without those reports to support those claims.
All right. So now, speaking of production, David, you did mention, I just want to understand, besides energy, if you could help us understand what are some other major resources that are required when manufacturing lab-grown diamonds, especially in water-stressed regions?
Yeah, so water is key to the lab-grown diamond producing to cool down those high energy reactors. And so particularly in India, where obviously water is, I'm in London at the moment where water scarcity tends not to be a problem. But clearly in regions around the world, and particularly in India, where water scarcity is a challenge, the lab-grown diamond industry uses huge amounts of water in order to be able to cool those reactors that create the lab-grown diamonds.
Right. So we'll discuss India in greater detail later. But you've spoken about the fall in NGD prices. So if you could explain to us what are the key drivers behind the sharp decline that we are seeing in lab-grown diamond prices, and how do these contrast with the pricing in the natural diamond market?
So I think this goes back to lab-grown diamonds being a technology-based product. So as with all technology-based products, once they get to wider adoption, once they get to larger scale, once the technology improves and becomes more efficient, all technological products become substantially cheaper. And in the case of lab-grown diamonds, in the last 7 years, the wholesale price of a lab-grown diamond has dropped over 95%. And so that is significant, and it's continuing to drop. Even in the last quarter, it's continued to drop, and that's now because lab-grown diamonds are mass-produced at scale, and they're a technological product, and we are seeing that also come through to the retail market, and the huge drop in price in the retail prices. Retail prices over that same time have dropped over 3/4 in that time, and they will fall considerably cheaper in that time. A lab-grown diamond on a per carat basis typically costs between $30 and $50 per carat to produce. And so that if people are paying considerably more than that for a lab-grown diamond, then that's all in an artificially high margin for retailers.
Right, so that's about the price trend, and you also were talking about the production angle in India. But when it comes to consumption, what kind of acceptance have you seen for lab-grown diamonds in India? If you could help us with that trend.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very, very low compared with the US is the biggest market for lab-grown diamonds. It's a very different culture, very different relationship with diamonds and jewelry. India, despite all the publicity and coverage, is still very, very low. We estimate it to be in the low single-digit percentages. So there really isn't adoption there. And that's because the culture in India is about jewelry being a store of value. And that, again, is different from the US and other Western markets. But the store of value when the product price is decreasing at such a rapid rate is clearly not seen as a store of value. By contrast, natural diamonds, when you look over a long period of time, have continued to grow in value. And it's, yes, the diamond market is always subject to short-term peaks and troughs, as with any commodity that is recovered from the ground. But over the long term, natural diamonds have always shown a long-term growth in price, and we fully expect that to continue in the future as the recovery of diamonds becomes less.
Natural diamond prices will likely continue to see price trends going up, while the acceptance for lab-grown diamonds continues to stay slightly on the lower side when it comes to India. But David, talking about the environmental impact, considering these environmental and economic dynamics as well, any policy or transparency measures that you must see could improve consumer understanding and industry accountability when it comes to lab-grown diamonds?
Yeah, so we, the National Diamond Council, produce reports on all of the industry using third-party verified and audited data. So we create reports that provide all the data for anybody that has a greater interest when purchasing diamonds or covering diamonds from a publicity perspective. And so we have on our website on naturaldiamonds.com all of the reports, including the data and information around laboratory-grown diamonds. And we think that's really important because it is a very special purchase for consumers. It's a very special and unique moment. Diamonds celebrates these moments and are unique in that sense. And consumers want to know where they're spending money. They want to know the information behind that investment. And that's why we produce those reports along with a lot of other information that can be found on our website.
Right. Thank you so much, David, for sharing all of that info about lab-grown diamonds as well as natural-grown diamonds when it comes to the pricing trend, demand, etc., and the environmental impact as well. On that note, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining us.